Hello my Bandicrew and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little different. I'm going to be reviewing 4 episodes from the Skylanders Academy series. I'm doing a project right now where I'm trying to see where Crash and Spyro intersect in their timelines. It's a video request that someone had, and upon tackling this topic, in my research I found that Crash has crossed over with Spyro in the Skylanders Academy series. So I decided to watch the 4 episodes, and you know what? I'm going to review them for you guys. So I'm just going to go over what happened in the episodes, and then at the end I'm going to give my opinion on where I think it places in the timeline, and if I think it is canon to the series. If this is your first time coming to the channel, I release Crash Bandicoot content every single week. We discuss lore, theories, news, we do tier lists, interviews, we do game reviews, and now we're doing TV reviews. I also have a Crash Bandicoot podcast, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. So there's 4 episodes that Crash guest stars in Skylanders Academy. There's 2 episodes in Season 1 and 2 episodes in Season 3. I don't know much about Skylanders. I watched the episodes and I did a little research on some of the things that were discussed in it. I'm not, like, an expert on Skylanders by any means, so if I do make some mistakes, please forgive me, but I'm pretty sure I got general gist of what's going on. So the first episode that Crash guests in, he doesn't even show up until, like, the last minute of the episode. So a good chunk of this episode was just Skylanders characters. And this troll guy's name is Glumshanks, and that bald guy is Chaos. He's like the main villain of the series. So Chaos creates this lens that allows him to see into the future. And something that I thought was crazy was this troll dude, Glumshanks, is voiced by Norm Macdonald, which is wild to me. Norm Macdonald voicing a character in Skylanders. But yeah, so Chaos creates this lens that lets him see into the future, and then he shocks it with dark energy, which allows him to see into the future. And he sees when evil deeds are going to be happening in the future. So Crash and this character named Pop Fizz, who I guess is like the mechanic or the science guy of the group, are at this little marketplace, and they actually discover the lens and they purchase it for free. Then Pop Fizz makes the Quantum Evil Scope, and the characters, when they look through this scope at certain characters, it shows what they will do in the future. So Crash and the rest of the Skylanders start going and stopping the evil characters from performing evil deeds before they do the evil deeds. And because they did that, all of the evil that they stopped from occurring started piling up. So because there was no outsource for the evil to, like, latch onto, all the evil in the universe started compiling into this big evil blob up in the sky. And the episode ends with Spyro flying into the giant evil blob in the sky. And that's it. Then he starts attacking it and creates a rift. And there's a big explosion. And Crash Bandicoot appears in the Skylands world. And that's the end of the first level, or the first episode. So then Crash does a whole bunch of backflips and spins and stuff. He introduces himself. And this is where he introduces where he originated from, and it helps place it in the timeline. So Crash literally says, Dr. Cortex was just about to begin his takeover of our world, at the very moment I was sucked into the Skylands. Then he goes on to talk about how he needs to save his friend Tawna, and how Cortex is going to make an army of mutant animals. So that means that this episode takes place at the start of Crash Bandicoot's timeline before Crash Bandicoot 1 even occurs. Crash Bandicoot speaks in full sentences and has an Australian accent. So I feel as if this really can't happen. Like, yeah, we're only at the very start of this review, and it seems like it doesn't work with the Crash continuity. So Crash needs to get back to his universe, and Eon, this old wizard dude, says the only way that he can create a functional portal is by mixing good magic and light magic, or good magic and bad magic. And since he only does good magic, he needs a dark relic. So Crash, along with the Skylanders, go to find a dark relic. And this is him explaining it in more detail, where they need to go get a dark relic. Then Crash does a whole bunch of spins and backflips and more stuff to save these, whatever they are. I don't know what they are, but they save them from some bad guys, and Spyro starts fanboying over Crash. He's like, whoa, you're so cool. I wish I was just like you, blah, blah, blah. And then he starts emulating Crash. He puts on sneakers, fake eyebrows, fake mohawk, and he starts acting like Crash and trying to spin like Crash. So he's a big fanboy of Crash in this series. Then he does a backflip and spins and actually ends up getting caught because he's not doing Spyro abilities. He's just trying to emulate Crash, which he's not good at. And this wizard guy's name is Chompy, as far as I could tell. And Chompy captures Spyro, and then he brings him to Chaos. And Chaos has this dark spell book that he stole from his mother. And Chompy and Chaos get in a fight, and Chaos is going to use this dark book until Crash jumps in the air and grabs the book for himself. So he grabs the book, and he stops the evil of Chaos and Chompy, and saves Spyro. And with the dark book in hand, it is a dark relic, and Spyro and Crash and the Skylanders go back to Eon, and he uses the dark book to open up a portal to bring Crash back to his universe. That's what they say. They say his universe. So the ending of the second part, Crash goes back to his time. They imply that he goes back to exactly where he was left off in the timeline. So he's going back to Crash Bandicoot 1, before the adventure of Crash Bandicoot 1, rather. So timeline-wise, in this universe, this continuity, I should say, Crash travels back to pre-Crash Bandicoot 1 time. And that is the end of Crash's appearance in the first season of Skylanders. Overall, it was a cute adventure. It didn't really have much effect on Crash's timeline, nor did it really affect the classic Spyro timeline, because as far as I'm aware, Skylanders Spyro is not classic Spyro. And then that brings us to Season 3. There's a jump. Crash isn't in Season 2 at all. And then we go into Season 3. In Crash's first appearance in a Season 3 episode, Spyro is now Dark Spyro for some reason. I tried to look on the wiki to see if this was a new character entirely. Spyro didn't appear at all in the episode. It was just Dark Spyro. So I assume that Dark Spyro is Spyro because they acted as if he was. So I think this is just a form of Spyro. In Crash on the Run, Dark Spyro and Spyro are two different characters, so they might be two different characters. The wiki wasn't really clear on that. So just take that with a grain of salt. I may be wrong. It might be a different character. But Dark Spyro has the Wumpin Puzzle Box. I don't know much more about the Wumpin Puzzle Box other than the fact that they call it a Wumpin Puzzle Box. So he's trying to open it and he can't get it. And then we have Eruptor, and he's saying that he needs to study up on the Wumpa Islands for his class. And Spyro says, oh, well, how about we go visit Crash? And Eruptor says that they don't have means to travel to a different universe. So Spyro says, instead of traveling to Crash's universe to get Crash, how about we just travel back in time to when we were with Crash back in Season 1. So they get a time disruptor and travel to the Season 1 episode where they just encountered Crash. So here's the episode where Crash was just there and he got the dark book and got the portal opened up and returned back to his time. So timeline-wise, this is just overlapping with the events that already happened in the previous episode. So nothing's really changed. We just have additional characters. So Dark Spyro's there, and again, like I said, they act as if Dark Spyro is Spyro. So they explain to Crash that they're from the future and that they need his help and they want to learn about the Wumpa Islands for Eruptor's test. So Crash says, yeah, that's cool. They grab the time disruptor and they're going to jump back to present time so Eruptor can take his test. But when they get back to the present time, it appears that they've altered history. So they branched the timelines. So we're in an alternate continuity in a different universe in a different timeline now. So it's not the video game continuity, so we're in a different continuity entirely. And then Crash's universe is confirmed to be a different universe. And now, within that universe, they've split the timeline. So it's a different continuity, universe, and timeline. And the reason that the timeline was split was because Crash was taken before he grabbed the Dark Book. So Glumshanks actually grabbed the book and became like the supreme Dark Overlord guy. And now he's the ruler, and he's no longer the minion of Chaos. Chaos is his minion. So Crash, Spyro, and Eruptor go to try and fix the time and get the book back. When they arrive there, Chaos is sick of getting beaten up by Glumshanks, so he joins the heroes and is acting good. He's on the good side, and he opens up the Wumpin puzzle box in this timeline because it's a way to get the time disruptor from Glumshanks. Yes, so we've got the time disruptor, the Wumpin puzzle box, Glumshanks, a good Chaos. It's getting kind of convoluted, but they're in an evil alternate timeline, and they're trying to bring Crash back to the past of the Season 1 episode to put him back where he was so he can collect the book and stop this evil timeline from happening. However, Disruptor sees that the Skylanders of this timeline were all captured, and he wants to stay and help this timeline because he believes that it created a branch timeline, and even if they put Crash back to fix their timeline, this timeline will still exist. So he wants to stay and defeat the evil Glumshanks and free the Skylanders. So Chaos and the and the past Skylander, the current Skylanders, so that's Eruptor, Dark Spyro, and Crash, fight Glumshanks and defeat him. There's Crash after he spun and defeated all of Glumshanks' minions. And there they are standing above Glumshanks, telling him that he has been destroyed. The future Skylanders are saved, and Chaos actually becomes a good guy in the future, and now it's up to Eruptor and Dark Spyro to go back to their time so that the future Skylanders will be able to find the future version of Eruptor and Dark Spyro. Yes, very confusing. So because they went to the future, they weren't in the past, but now them going back to the past will somehow make them reappear in the future, even though it's a split timeline. I don't think that really makes sense, but that's what this series is going by. That's what they're doing. That's what they're saying, and that's how they want to handle it, I guess. And then Crash jumps into a portal from the Time Disruptor and returns back to the Season 1 episode before Dark Spyro and Eruptor took him from time, and he grabs the book, and the timeline is saved, and it's back to normal. And that's the last appearance until the final episode of the entire series, where we're just going to jump into the final episode now. So there's this evil wizard that is named Strykor, I believe. Strykor. And Eon and Chaos's mother, who I don't know her name, they're teaming up to try and fight him. And that's the B plot. Or possibly the A plot. And then, in the other plot, Spyro and the Skylanders, who now it looks like Pop Fizz is gone and replaced with Cinder. And Spyro is back to being Spyro. He's no longer Dark Spyro, so I guess that plot has been resolved. They get on a flying ship with a guy named Flynn. And Spyro says, "Hey Flynn, you know how to get to the Wumpa Islands, right? Let's go get some help." So it goes against continuity in its own series that they needed portals and time disruptors just to get to Crash's universe, but now all they need is a flying ship to just go pick up Crash. I tried to look up what Flynn's abilities were, and maybe his ship has interdimensional, inter-universal travel, multiversal travel, but I couldn't find anything on that, so I could be wrong. Maybe he does have those abilities, but it seems like they just sloppily wanted Crash to appear, so they just said, oh, this guy's going to fly and pick him up. And Crash and Coco appear this time. Coco has an Australian accent just like Crash, and she throws boomerangs. This design is unique to this series. It's interesting. I'm not 100% for it, but at the same time, it's nice that they gave her her own distinct look, because Crash has his own distinct look for this series. And Crash, Coco, and the Skylanders fight against Chaos in a giant robot. So there's her with her boomerang, and there's the giant Chaos robot. Now, we had a nice placement in the timeline for the first 3 appearances of Crash in this series, but this one is very, very, limited on information. The only thing we know is Crash is currently with Coco, so it probably has to happen post Crash Bandicoot 2, or post Crash Bandicoot 1 anyway, because that's when we know for a fact Crash is with Coco. So I'm gonna take a very big leap and try and figure out where this takes place in the timeline. Crash does his tornado spin, and he's going up to fight Chaos and this giant robot, and you can see Glumshanks there with Chaos. And he does a crazy multi-punch attack, which gives me vibes of the Radical games. Of course, this could be not that at all, but that's what I am taking it as. In this continuity anyway, they have plucked Crash out from his most recent console adventures. So this is the Mind Over Mutant Crash, which kind of syncs up well if we go by the Coco that we see, because she's older looking. So with an older Coco and Crash performing melee attacks rather than just spinning, he's doing all of his punches. I think that timeline wise this would be Mind Over Mutant Crash. And then really Crash takes a back seat for the rest of the story. The giant chaos robot is going to destroy the MacGuffin, and they need to stop him before he does it, otherwise the universe will be destroyed. And then Eon shows up to stop the Chaos's destruction of the thing, and it appears that he is destroyed in the process, and they're all sad that he's gone. Then Chaos's mother says that she's going to replace Eon as the light mage or the good magic mage, but Crash was confused and thought that they were saying that he was going to be the new light mage, and he said, hey, I've got quite the commute from the Wumpa Islands. So again, they're kind of just acting as if Crash is just like the Wumpa Islands are in the Skylands now. And that is the last appearance of Crash. They don't even show how he gets back. So in the original episodes that he first appeared, they like explained the rifts in time and space, and a portal opened up, and then they needed stuff to like open a portal to send him back. And then in this one, it's just like, hey, Flynn flew and picked him up. And then they don't even explain how he gets back, so it's just assumed that Flynn flies him back. Then we see the Skylanders playing sheep ball. Chaos is shown to be thrown in prison. So in the bad timeline, he's the good guy, and in the good timeline, he's the bad guy and he's stuck in prison. And then it's revealed that Eon didn't actually die. He just got stuck in between dimensions. And he tells Spyro that he is going to bring Spyro back to his dragon family. So, that's how the franchise ends, or the series ends. I don't know if it's in continuity with the Skylander games, but assuming it is, this is the ending of Spyro's time with the Skylanders, and he's going back to the Dragon Realms. So like I said, I'm not sure if this is meant to be classic Spyro or legendary Spyro. It doesn't look like either of them, but he is being brought back to the Dragon Realms by Eon. And that is the end of all of the Crash Bandicoot appearances in Skylanders Academy. So timeline-wise, if it is in continuity with the games, which I don't believe it is, the Season 1, Episode 1, 2, and Season 3, Episode 1 appearances of Crash all take place pre-Crash Bandicoot 1, and then the finale of the franchise, the second episode in Season 3 that Crash appeared in, takes place towards the end of Crash's timeline during Mind Over Mutant. And as a review, I think it was enjoyable for what it was. It was nice to see that they gave Crash a voice, which kind of differentiates him from being the jibber-jabber, talking pancake, whoa guy of the series, of the video game series. So, to me, I think it places it outside of the main timeline. As far as a score, I'm going to do them all together instead of doing each episode individually. I would probably give this at least a 6 out of 10. They could have added more lore in the later episode to explain Crash and Coco appearing. I understand that Crash and Coco are side characters, so the main plot is with the Skylanders, but it kind of just felt like they threw them in there at the end for no reason. Like, why is Crash and Coco there? They didn't really help do much. But it was nice that not only Crash is there, but they brought in Coco. So like I said, I'll give it a 6 out of 10, and timeline placement would be pre-Crash 1 and probably post-Radical Crash. So at the beginning of the timeline and towards the very end of the timeline that Crash encountered the Skylanders. So my Bandicrew, that is the end of the review. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you've never seen these episodes, I hope that this educated you on Crash's encounters with the Skylanders. If you did see the episodes, tell me if I was correct with everything that I informed everybody on. If I did make any mistakes continuity-wise for Skylanders stuff, just, post in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next week. Have a great night. Take care.